Welcome back. UND is rolling out some great tools to help us understand COVID-19 and how it is spreading in an attempt for us to help flatten this curve that we hear so much about. So joining us now, this sounds like a pretty cool gig, geospatial instructor Joseph Boo. Joseph, thanks so much for joining us. So let's hear more about your project and what it's doing to track coronavirus and flatten the curve, sir.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this morning. So as the COVID-19 began to spread at the beginning of the year, several maps, dashboards, and near real-time services emerged to give the best picture of where and how the new coronavirus is spreading in near real time. So as the cases started to grow in the United States, we wanted to move away from the global picture and look at the situation here in the States. And so in an exchange with the Dean of the College of Arts and Science, Dr. Bradley Ronquist, we quickly realized how bias the count maps that we had were, because these maps increasingly only show where people live and where most of the case tests were being done. And so the present count maps are biased by population and did not really show the incidence rate. So what we tried to do here was instead look at the number of confirmed cases on its own, whereby we normalize the data by area by examining the number of confirmed cases per county. And also how this affects a local community as ours is that you would realize that every community must prepare and respond to hazardous events such as the COVID-19 outbreak. So our infographics or our operational dashboard here also had to keep an eye on the social vulnerability, try to see where which factors such as poverty, lack of access to transportation, and even crowded housing may weaken the community's ability to prevent human suffering and financial loss in such an event. So we were just in an attempt trying to help decision makers identify at-risk areas within the community so that they may best prepare when it hits our own community.
So, Joseph, with that being said, let me ask you this, because I know you're probably not an epidemiologist, but there's so many different theories about how this spreads. So based on the data that you have, what's the most important thing you think our audience should know about the coronavirus?
So thank you again. So the most important thing is we know what we're talking about here is the social distancing. And to begin with, we wanted to normalize the data, not to make it seem like every person is congregated at the same point and it's affecting everybody at the same time. So when we normalize data, for instance, when you use the more raw and generalized data, it tends to be misleading because it paints a terrible picture that is more sensational and ends up failing to paint the real picture. However, when you combine the national, regional, and local geographic perspective on a dashboard, it becomes an invaluable mitigation measure at every level of the government. So what that does is that by normalizing count values, we are altering it so that the same level should be at the same level of representation. So if we go back to how is that affecting us is if we continue encouraging people to congregate in the same area, it's likely going to affect those people that are concentrated in those areas. So let's say when you look at the models show that highly densely urban areas are going to be highly infected. Okay, now we are instituting a social distancing measures. Let's go back to those factories that are still open in our state. You having more than 10 people in a room. That is a high density that we cannot afford to keep going by, because it's sooner or later one person will infect everyone in the room. And so the models are that the more people are grouped in a place, there's a high probability that those people will be infected, and
Joseph?
reasons why we're encouraging social distancing.
I'm getting the thing we got to wrap, so maybe we can have you back. But just for clarity, sir, because there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, there's other people out there that have already built up antibodies, and so my question to you is, the data that you're mapping is strictly based off the only people that have tested positive. Is that a fair assumption on my part?
Yes, it's based just on those that are tested positive. But
So-
if you look at the infographics, you
Joseph?
would realize that the infographic has social and economic data that is also being used to model what may happen and how a community can best prepare.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. We'd love to have you back, because obviously there's a lot more to discuss. So thank you for your time and the insight, okay?
You bet.
All right, stick around. Mark J. Lindquist coming up.